Y'all, I'm back with another one. Today we got another one from Anton Daniel. Shout out to him. We asked the question, is black culture trash? Let's get into this. They're basically talking about what Kanye West was talking about on Tucker Carlson tonight with this interview. So let's get right into this. This is fair use.
What's going on, Honest Truth?
Hey, what's going on, Anton? Long time watcher, man.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you and your platform, bro. Keep on rocking.
Thank you.
Thank you, man. So I'll make it short and sweet. I've really been a fan of Kanye for a long time. He's really my favorite rapper. He's my favorite artist. Top 5, in my opinion, to ever do it.
I agree.
And appreciate that. And I think what he is good at is being spot on the money at every turn of his career. Whatever he does, he's spot on the money, whether it's fashion, music, and in this case, politics. We're at a polarizing time in this nation right now, man, where we just got off of a Black Lives Matter multi-billion-dollar campaign to try and push the awareness, the knowledge of what's been happening politically and with police and everything like that inside of black cultures. But also at the same time, we're having a wokeness and awareness within ourselves that sometimes we are our own worst enemies as well. So as black people, we're in a really polarizing position because, and this is something that I never heard anybody said. I thought of this the other day. We're the only people in the world that don't have a home country, Black Americans. We're the only people where we can't go back to our own country of people that look like us really and plug in automatically because there's such a vast difference in culture between us and Africans here in America, right? So what's happening is we're having this wokeness, this realization, and some of us are up. Kanye woke up a long time ago, and money does help you do that as well. I don't know if y'all remember when Dave Chappelle joked about being a Democrat until he became rich, and then he joked about voting for Trump on stage. And everybody laughed about it, but it's true. To some extent, there are benefits that you get. Obviously, we're not going to get too deep into that right now. Going back to Kanye and the White Lives Matter comments, the biggest thing about it that rubs a lot of people the wrong way is the truth about a lot of aspects about what that shirt mentions and what Kanye talks about. So obviously, the White Lives Matter isn't trying to, and I don't think they're trying to, him and Candace Owens, make it seem like white people are more important per se.
No, they didn't even speak on white people specifically when they talked about and addressed the whole White Lives Matter t-shirt.
What's crazy about those him coming out with those T-shirts and so posting on social media is that it got a lot of black people specifically riled up, got a lot of them upset emotionally, got them thinking emotionally instead of logically about why that was happening. But Kanye West and Candace Owens, they were smart people. They understood that putting those shirts on is going to cause a lot of uproar, cause a lot of controversy around them, and people are still talking about this ever since that happened. And they never said, like they were saying in this video, they never said that white lives are more important than black lives or anything like that. They understood that having a shirt that just says the key word on those shirts was white, and it instantly triggered people. That was very telling, and that's one thing I noticed when I first saw those T-shirts. That a lot of people were just going off. I saw Lil Boosie recently go off on Kanye, clowning them. He had a whole, he made an entire meme of Kanye West where he pretty much photoshopped him to have white skin. I guess that's supposed to be funny. I didn't see any humor in that because to me, the whole point of why they were doing that went over his head. But most black people, in my opinion, aren't going to understand that.
Exactly. But it's been convoluted and kind of interpreted as this really coonish type behavior, right? And that's not the case at all. What it is, it's a conversation starter for us to really have these conversations like you're doing now on your platform, Anton. So shout out to you of how we kind of do each other in a different light, and we don't acknowledge that, right? So we know that Black Lives Matter, cool. That's all fine and dandy. But what's happening now, Anton, is we're starting to speak about everything in our community that needs a lot of work. And here's where the big issue is, right? Here's where the big issue is. And I'll finish off with this. Mm-hmm. That the White Lives Matter shirt being such an issue with a lot of black people is telling. Because it almost puts reality of, and a lot of people are going to get upset at this. It almost puts the reality of our community to light.
Oh, absolutely. Because one thing, there's a lot of dirty secrets about the Black community that a lot of Black people don't want to be talked about. And because it'll expose a lot of the hypocrisy going on within the community. Like I've never at first let me tell you something. When Black Lives Matter first hit the scene, I was all for it. Then I found out what they're really about, how they don't really care about keeping Black families together. They want to get rid of the nuclear family. They want to spend all this donor money on nonsense, and none of that money that they made, all the $80 million that they could have reinvested into Black communities nationwide. Nah, they never did that. They'd rather use that money on themselves. And then the fact that I would even see Black people online justifying them doing that by saying, "Oh, white people have been doing this for years, so what is it different?" It shows me how simple-minded a lot of people are.
We can be racist.
Absolutely.
Without question, I agree 100%.
100%.
I don't know if y'all know this, but like, I mean, just imagine this for a second. But imagine, you're a white person, and you see all these Black people getting upset because there's a White Lives Matter shirt, even though I, as a white person, have just been pushing Black Lives Matter for years. You know what I'm saying? So there's a really big issue going on right here, and that's that we can't even see ourselves as being racist. Like, you ask a Black person, can you be racist? They're like, no, of course you can't be racist. We're Black. We can't be racist in America. That's an issue. But also on top of that,
that's one of the biggest lies I've ever heard in my entire life, that Black people can't be racist. Because I've seen examples of Black people constantly throwing white people under the bus and never getting ridiculed for it. But let a white person say anything about Black people, they're immediately deemed racist. I don't think that's fair. You should be able to call a spade if you ask me.
You and this blind racism that a lot of Black people just don't see that we can have will start to create legitimate racism in this country as well. Y'all, I don't know, but wake up. And I think a lot of us need to wake up to the position of the 14% of this country that we're in. And I'm not telling you to live in fear. I'm not telling you to do that. But we as Black people owning 2% of the wealth in America, we own very little. We have very little roots in this country. And for whatever reason or another, there's an agenda to try and prod and wake up this giant lion and to divide ourselves and to start this civil misery amongst each other. And I'm telling you right now, nobody wants that, but least of us, the most minoritied. We don't want that situation, and we don't want those problems. There's a lot of issues that something or some entity is trying to stir up. But what Kanye is doing is he's actually trying to solve those issues a bit and connect the bridge. I get it, y'all. Slavery happened. I get it that there was a lot of bad stuff that happened. It's 2022 now. At some point or another, we're going to have to wake up and realize that we weren't, parents weren't. But if we keep letting certain things and agendas divide us, we're going to be divided one day, just like we were back then.
Do you think that I have a theory personally, right?
And I agree with this gentleman right here about, a lot of Black people, in my opinion, are just focused on the wrong things too much. We're focused on the wrong things way too much. We own, like you said, we only have 2% of the wealth in this country. That's not good. And we're already on track to being a permanent underclass by 2050, which is literally right around the corner. That's not that far away. Like, we'll all blink and that'll be here. And by the time most Black folks realize that, it'll be too late, if you ask me.
And my theory is the reason why we'll never make any progress, or we haven't made any progress, and we actually continue to go backwards, is because I think that there's I don't want to say the OGs, I'm going to say older generation still is at the helm. And I think that they have a narrative that's actually pushing us backwards instead of propelling us forward, right? I think that there's people in power and people in positions of authority. Some of the people, in my opinion, is Roland Martin, Jesse Jackson, those type of people, right?
Yeah, a lot of these old Negroes with their 1962 way of thinking gotta go, because they're not really in touch with what the needs of modern Black people, or the other needs of modern Black people, excuse me.
And even when it comes to a lot of these pundits and people that are on these platforms or people that have a voice and so on and so forth, I believe that those are our biggest barriers. I don't think that it has anything to do with white people. I don't think it has anything to do with a system. I do think that Hollywood and our media plays a huge role in it. But I think that largely one of the reasons why there's a lack of progress is because the people that are supposed to be having the conversations, they don't have as big as a platform or the microphone as the ones that are at the forefront of having these conversations, such as the ones that support the Black Lives Matters organization itself, right? What do you think about that? What do you think is the biggest hindrance as far as progress when it comes to economic wealth? Because I'll even give you an example to illustrate my point, right? When a lot of the old people or old guard highlight economic wealth, as you indicated, 2% of the wealth in the country, right? They're asking for a handout. They're not asking for information. They're asking for empowerment in the form of some form of a handout or, economic opportunity or whatever. I believe that the biggest progress that the Black community can make in itself is to be less dependent on the federal government, less dependent on handouts, less dependent on stimulus, less dependent on the government titty, in order to make sure that they pull themselves into a position of power by then empowering themselves by being more forceful when it comes to their consumer spending habits, ownership, all of this type of stuff. What are your thoughts on that?
I absolutely agree 100% with Anton, man. Shout out to you, OG. I love what he said right there, because I've always thought that way myself. Black people were way too dependent on the government. We lean on them so much, which is the main reason why a lot of Black people will remain in economic turmoil, or a lot of them are not economically literate, because they rely too much on government assistance as a crutch to think oh, that's all they need and they can make it. Nah. Some of the people who are doing well for themselves, but they're not quite like super rich yet, they're not depending on the government assistance. They're not. They figured out how to play the game of America and play it well. And if you ask me, those are the people more Black people need to listen to in order to get themselves out of the hole that they're in financially. Because at the end of the day, like consistently depending on the government because they're only going to give you so much. They're not going to really give you enough to really thrive in this country. They just give you just enough to survive.
That whole thing.
Yeah, you're spot on. You're spot on, and I'll kind of build off of that. So there's a couple of fundamental concepts. I saw the comments, and of course, I'm not going to bring too many of them to light. But so many people are saying, "Oh, quote, just get over racism." Oh, here's another one where the past doesn't matter, right? And this is what I have to say to this, and to every person, and not just to Black people, because all races have endured slavery in the past. It just so happens that for whatever reason or another, ours was very interestingly long, right? Now, I understand that it happened, and that's all fine and dandy. But the solution is, just as you stated, whether it's 1500 or whether it's the year 2022, and that is that the strength of the community is what's going to carry you through whatever types of external, whatever is outside influences are trying to destroy your community. It can't happen if you have a tight enough household that your family members aren't going to bend and shake. It can't happen if you have a tight enough community to where people aren't going to sell each other short or sell each other out. So the answer at the end of the day does come back to, once again, the strength of each individual person in the community. Now, the problem is this, Anton. The problem is that we grow up in a certain area and demographic, once again, going to that money and the lack of money, that creates a scarcity mindset inside of us. When you grow up in the hood, when you grow up in these areas that a lot of us unfortunately grew up in, and we don't have the strength of the community to provide resources and backing and safety and security, your mind starts to envelop or enshroud itself in the scarcity mindset, because you don't have enough security, you don't have enough resources, you don't have enough this, and you don't have enough that. Also, as a side effect, you don't ever really have the chance to face your problems head on because you don't have the resources to do so. So what do you say? Well, you go ahead and you build a habit or a lifestyle of looking or blaming others or whatever it might be. And I'm not saying that everybody does this, but I'm saying that when you don't have resources and functions and things in check to put people and communities in the right positions to thrive or to correct them or to get them started in this race of the life race on the right start, when there's no guidance, then everybody has to figure out their own way. And so that's what we have happening right now. We have a lot of people in the community who are raised to positions who didn't really have the know-how, who didn't have the backing. We don't have generational wisdom. We don't have generational economic infrastructure and fortification. We don't have as much knowledge. But the people that are risen to knowledge in our culture, a lot of the times, are the ones who are just as lost as we are. And having money doesn't change that necessarily. What does change that is having vision. When you have vision and when you have drive, when you have people that are willing to sacrifice for the community, and this is something else I hear a lot about, we joke about when we get money, man, moving out of the hood. How many times have you joked about, man, well, I can't wait till I get some money to get away from y'all, right? We joke about creating our own demise even when we make it monetarily. So it's the White Lives Matter shirt is saying a lot more about a good amount of black people than it is white people in this case. And that's what Kanye nailed. He nailed it. He nailed it. And this is why Charleston White is also starting. And I don't mean to name drop, but forgive me, yo.
No, you cool. I'm cool with Charleston. That's my guy.
Go ahead, bro. This is why other people are starting to become more woke, if you will. We're starting to say, hey, you know what? That makes sense. Yeah, Anton, you know what? That kind of makes sense. Yeah, I don't fully agree with it, but okay, listen, y'all.
And honestly, and that's basically the end of the video. Basically, I think that, the scarcity mindset, like what that gentleman was saying, is a key detriment to a lot of black people growing up in, in the hood areas. Because you grew up not thinking like, oh, no one wants me to make it, no one wants me to make money. No, you feel like you have nowhere to go, which is why a lot of them resort to. Well, a lot of black people growing up in the hood may end up resorting to illegal activity to make a dollar just to get out of that area, because they feel like they have nothing, they have nowhere else to go, they have no, there's no other way to do it. That's from the scarcity mindset. Now, I mean, now 2022 and beyond, it is easier to make money than ever before. It's easier to make legit money that can help you help you rise up on the tax brackets. It's not like we had less opportunities like maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. But the power of like the internet and smartphones and things like that, it is so incredibly easy to figure out how you want to make money. If you want to start your own clothing line, it is easier than ever before. You don't have to have a brick and mortar store rented out or anything like that. You can do your whole store online, promote it on social media. Boom, get enough on it, and boom, you'll make money in due time. You'll probably make good money depending on how well you grind and how much people really like your product. Obviously, if you want to cook, you can do that. Promote yourself online. The internet is a very powerful tool, and I think if more black people take advantage of how to use the internet to get themselves out of economic turmoil, I think a lot of things will turn around. That's just one way to do it, but I know there's several other ways. Anyways, I didn't mean for this video to be super long, but it is anyway. But I appreciate y'all for watching. If you made it this far, please consider subscribing. I really appreciate that. Hit that like button, and I will see y'all in the next video. Peace.